Hey, and welcome to another episode of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine. My name is Sam Okus. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. This is episode 3 of our Restaurantology series. If you're just joining us, I highly recommend you go check out our previous episodes, which include episode 1 with R&R BBQ president Neil Harford and Savory management president Shauna Smith. And then, of course, episode 2, we had Mo Betta's co-founder Chemo Mac and Swig president Chase Wardrop. We also were joined in that conversation by Savory management's Jessica Moyer. Again, lots of great content to take from those 2 episodes, and I highly recommend you go back and check those out. You can check out the entire Restaurantology series on the Fast Forward podcast feed, wherever you listen to podcasts, but you can also go to savoryfund.com/restaurantology. That's restaurantology to check out the videos there. You can stream these, the videos of these panel conversations there. Prior to the pandemic, Savory's portfolio included the fast casuals, Mo Betta's, R&R BBQ, and Swig. Now, this fall, though, Savory closed on controlling investments of the Crack Shack and Via 313 Pizzeria. Via 313 is based in Austin. The Crack Shack is based in Southern California. And on today's episode, I'm talking to Michael Rosen, who is the founder of the Crack Shack, and also talking to Brandon and Zane Hunt, who are the brothers behind Via 313. We're also going to be joined in this panel conversation by Andrew Smith, who is the managing director of Savory Fund. We cover a lot of ground in this conversation. We discuss their brand stories, how they've managed to succeed even during COVID, and we also talk about what kind of changes they think are going to stick around to their brands after the pandemic. But we also get into the acquisition process. We talk about how they landed a deal in the middle of the pandemic and what they were looking for in the ideal investment partner. Before we get into this Restaurantology session, as always, go to qsrmagazine.com for all the news and insights you need on the QSR and fast casual restaurant industries. And email me anytime you want to talk or share your perspective, sam@qsrmagazine.com. And finally, just once again, stay tuned. All week, we are rolling out daily sessions in the Restaurantology series aimed at helping emerging restaurant operators prepare for exciting growth and better profitability. Now I'm going to roll into this panel conversation with Michael Rosen of The Crack Shack, Brandon and Zane Hunt of Via 313 Pizzeria, and Savory Fund Managing Director Andrew Smith. All right, I am really excited to be joined by Brandon and Zane from Via 313, and also from Mike from The Crack Shack, and then, of course, Andrew from Savory. Guys, thank you so much for joining for this conversation. I know I'm really excited to talk to you because especially Via 313 and the Crack Shack are both the new acquisitions that Savory has made. You guys are brand spanking new to this portfolio and lots of exciting things ahead for you. I think for the sake of the audience, let's just start by talking about what these brands are. Mike, let's start with you and the Crack Shack. Tell us about this brand. What's the origin story of this brand? And then tell us, too, a little bit about how excited you are to be, a part of the Savory portfolio.
Thanks, Sam. The Crack Shack was born, or hatched, I should say, out of our fine dining concept, Juniper and Ivy. Andrew's been to the campus, but we had this wonderful old 100-year building in San Diego, and there was a 2,000 square foot metal shed next to it. And after a year of successful operations in our fine dining restaurant, we tried to think what we might want to do with the shed. And I've always had a thing for chicken. If I go to a Michelin star restaurant, I'm going to order chicken because they could magically transform it. And we said, the better burger category has really taken off, but there's nobody using very high quality chicken. We use Jadori chicken. We said, how about if we do a chef-driven fast casual concept all around chicken and eggs? And so Fried Chicken Crack Shack was born.
Great. And tell me too about the acquisition now with Savory. I mean, this is obviously very exciting for you because it kind of gives you guys an accelerator to just really expand a lot more. What's that look like? How excited are you for this? What do you think this is going to open up for you guys?
Well, we're beyond excited. I mean, if you think about it, everyone's got core competencies, and I think we've really excelled at putting forth again, an amazing chef-driven fried chicken menu. We've really excelled at delivering consistency and quality, and we've really delivered on a brand. We have an irreverent brand with a really broad demographic. But, you know, if we could leverage the Savory platform, the Savory team, and, you know, we've watched their success with other concepts, and we said, you know, if this isn't a chocolate peanut butter moment, I don't know what is.
Got it. All right, Brandon and Zane, same questions for you. And I'm going to ask the question that probably you've heard 1,000 times. What's Detroit style pizza? Tell us about this concept and how it's got its start.
Yeah, so our origins are real simple. We two brothers, obviously. We born and raised single mother in Detroit, and our mom happened to eat a ton of pizza. I mean, we were eating pizza 3-4 times a week, many times really good mom and pop type places or Italian restaurants, a lot of Italian restaurant pizza in Southeast Michigan. So we really grew up in a really blessed environment for pizza. Probably didn't realize how great the scene was until we got a little bit older and left Detroit, either through travel or moving. When I moved down here to Austin in 2009, it became really apparent really quickly that the kind of pizza that we were accustomed to eating growing up really didn't exist outside of Southeast Michigan. And when I say that, I mean, that's a lot of different things. That could be anything from a Italian bakery pizza, to a good Italian hand-tossed pizza, to what we are now calling Detroit style pizza, which is a rectangle pizza prepared in a steel pan. It's a high hydration dough, so you're going to get it nice and airy, almost like focaccia-like. Cheese baked to the edge of that pan, so it caramelizes. And like we always joke, you know, in Detroit, nobody's calling it Detroit style pizza. It's just, are you getting square or are you getting round, basically? So we started calling it Detroit style pizza when we moved here. We took that bold move, a step to do that. And it's worked out really well for us because it set us apart from what everybody else does. One thing that we do differently here in Austin too, when we opened in 2011, is we set out to use the best possible ingredients we could find. Not to cut any corners on the meats, not to use a cheap flour. We're going to use the best cheeses that we can find. And that's a little bit different than you'd find back in Southeast Michigan, where sometimes it's kind of a race to the bottom. Everybody's fighting for that value-driven pizza. And we provided, I feel like VF 313 provides a different kind of value. It's not a money value, it's a quality value. So for what we do for the price, I think we provide great quality from that perspective. So, you know, what we're really trying to do, and we'll touch on this as we go on through the questions in the podcast here, but I feel like what we're really trying to do is touch on nostalgia. The kind of pizza we serve and the environment that we serve it in, we're just trying to dredge up these memories and these strong feelings and emotional ties that we've got from growing up. And that's why we've got full service, just a real neighborhoody kind of feel, but also an elevated pizza at the same time.
Yeah, Brandon, anything to add? And tell me too about, this acquisition and what do you guys think that this means for the brand?
Yeah, you know, early on, we grew extremely fast with just the two of us. Not much help. We made a key hire. We did 5 locations pretty much in 6.5 years. And we were starting to feel the pinches of just being overstretched, you know, not being able to be everywhere and not have all the answers. So this partnership for us is almost a breath of fresh air to have Andrew's team and the Savory platform backing us on our decisions and really having the data to support the decisions as well. Just super excited to have a partner that can help us out and learn from.
Andrew, tell me what you think about these brands. Why are Crack Shack and Via 313 two brands that caught your guys' attention at Savory? What's so special about these brands?
Well, first of all, I'd start and just say I love my job. I enjoy waking up and knowing that I get to be part of amazing brands with incredible food, with incredible people. I mean, how could you get any better than that with your job? With Savory, we've looked over 400 restaurant concepts in the last year. And where most of our concepts that we've decided to move forward with have stuck for us is really with the people. I mean, you've just met now two of the most exceptional people, I think, in the pizza arena, period, bar none. And my partner, Mike, with the Crack Shack and his campus, as he calls it, is one of the most nostalgic, cool, dope places in San Diego and Little Italy area. When you're there, you just go, I don't know what I'm going to do to help this guy, but I just want to hang out with him. So really the shtick for us with Savory is working with the best brands out there with the best people. Both of these brands, obviously leaders in their category. I mean, Detroit style, I'm from Chicago. I know that there's a lot of disagreements on who's got the best pizza in New York, Chicago, or Detroit. And I got to be honest with you, Detroit's pretty damn good. I was pretty surprised when I had it for the first time. It was one of those flavors and one of those experiences when you leave and you think, I've got to go back as soon as possible because something there was special. And that's what we saw with Via. We're looking for special brands run by really special people with a really unique story. The Crack Shack is interesting. You know, the chicken wars are real. We are all feeling the chicken wars. We're talking about the chicken wars. And we didn't necessarily want to get into the arena and just be a copycat chicken tender, chicken sandwich concept, especially in the QSR arena or fast casual. We really wanted to do something, separate or unique. And I think that Mike and his team have done something that nobody is doing. And I think that having a bone-in chicken platter is something that nobody's doing. Nobody really wanted to cling on to. And he did that pre-pandemic before chicken was crazy. And so we saw what he saw, and that is there's room for a better chicken concept. And we wanted to ride that train with him.
One of the things I really want to make sure we touch on in this conversation and drill down into is the idea of the M&A market, mergers, acquisitions, especially in the midst of a pandemic. Because, I think the M&A market really has heated up these last several months because, just the state of the economy right now, and there's a lot of opportunity there. But for you guys at Via 313 and at the Crack Shack, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Let's just talk about like what you were looking for in terms of an acquisition, and how has the pandemic really, how did it affect that for you as you were kind of going through this process?
Great. It's first of all, it's hard to focus with Zane saying caramelized cheese. I feel like Pavlov's dog when he started saying that. Hungry. Damn. Well, first of all, Savory had a fund at the perfect time. I mean, there isn't a better time than during a pandemic or during a challenging time. I mean, we all went through, the initial stages of the pandemic where, it was anger, denial, acceptance. You go through all those stages and then it's go time. We had a lot of conversations pre-pandemic about growth, and we talked to a lot of high-profile private equity firms. But again, money is one part of the M&A equation. Money doesn't guarantee success. Having too much money can lead you down the wrong path. We really wanted to find a partner with complementary skill set, and it really wasn't until we got to know Andrew and his team that we understood, how complementary the skill set actually is, and moving forward during a time of pandemic, how much opportunity we'd have by partnering.
Yeah, and Brandon and Zane, same for you guys. What was this process like for you? And I guess too, was this something that was this a long season for you of looking for, that partnership even before the pandemic, or was it something kind of spurred along by the pandemic?
I'll start it off here and let Brandon finish up. You clean up my mess behind me, but we started having internal discussions about possibly going down this path late last year. So this is pre-pandemic, obviously. I don't think COVID was even a thing that we were aware of yet in the United States. So we were starting to put the pieces, we were working with some advisors, we started putting the pieces in place to start to meet folks like Andrew and the Savory Fund. And then COVID hit in March. So we sat on the sidelines for a minute because we were concerned that maybe there would be no appetite in the market for a merger or acquisition at that point. Maybe the money had dried up, so to speak. And so we were a little scared off. We sat on the sidelines for a couple months, and then we came back out. And it's interesting, if I could backtrack just a touch, we actually met Andrew and the Savory team because they came down to Austin before COVID, and they had Via 313 before COVID. Before COVID, they ate in our restaurants and had a really good experience. So I think there was already an interest on their part. They were aware that we were potentially seeking a partner. So they were actually quite aggressive in pursuing us, even at a point when we weren't really sure if we were going to do something or not. And if we did, we didn't know who we were going to do it with. But they stayed, they so to speak, they stayed on us. And I think Brandon and I are probably natural skeptics of not just the process, but also people. We're really careful who we work with. I think Mike touched on that perfectly, about trying to find the right partner. It's not just about money. This is about people. This is about this is about enjoying complementary skill set and coming into work every day and enjoying who you're actually working with. There's no amount of money that Brandon and I could be given, I don't think, that would make us enjoy going into work every day with people that we don't want to work with. I mean, we have to find the right partners. So as we got accustomed to the Savory team, Andrew and his team, it just became really apparent to us that this was the right fit for Via 313 in us, from a personality standpoint and also a complementary skill set perspective too.
It's tough, following you and Mike, there's not much left to clean up. So, I mean, you both just nail it on the head. It feels like a weird time to be pursuing an acquisition or a merger, because there's not a ton of hope, but there are people out there looking. There are people ready to grow and take advantage of the opportunities that are available out there.
All right, so you guys all have mentioned this word partnership. So clearly this was something that was like you guys wanted support, and I think pretty much every restaurant in America right now would kill for that. I mean, having support, having people there to get your back, to help you through this season. Restaurateurs, they need that, they want that. And so you guys, yeah, of course, are very lucky to find that. But restaurants need that support because you need to adapt to a crisis that is unprecedented. Of course, these conditions are something the restaurant industry has never gone through. And so you've all kind of hinted about, how the pandemic has sort of had to force you to change things. Let's look into that a little bit more. What does that change look like? Via 313, you guys are a full service restaurant. I mean, that is something that side of the industry got especially crushed by the pandemic, because losing your dining rooms essentially means losing your lifeblood. So how did you guys need to adapt to the pandemic and really change the brand to accommodate all of these changes?
Yeah, besides closing the dining rooms, I don't think there was a ton of change. Pizza, pizza is pretty great carry out anyways. We had a pretty strong carry out business. So what we had to do is we knew what our carry out model was before the pandemic. So we had to bump it up, we had to bump it up about 10 or 20%, assuming that there was going to be obviously more influx. So we just turned the dining rooms into full service carryouts. We got salad makers in the dining room. We got, heat shelves in the dining room, and we're just ready to go to war every day. And we just had to change the model. If we were used to, certain amount of sales, we backed it off about 25% is what we hoped. And we built the model off those adjusted sales, and it kind of came true. And it's slowly just creeping back weekly.
Mike, I got to tell you, I was in Orange County. I think this was maybe last year. And I stopped at one of the Crack Shack locations. I wasn't hungry. It wasn't mealtime, but I was just so blown away at how beautiful this restaurant was. And I just wanted to walk through it. And so I stopped and I just walked through your restaurant because I thought it was so cool. But what that makes me think about is how you are, this is a concept built around an in-store experience. And so I have to imagine the pandemic especially has affected the way you guys approach your core business. And so what's that look like for Crack Shack, for how you have adjusted to the pandemic, knowing that this is an experience you want people to have?
No, Sam, first I got to say, I don't know why people confuse being hungry and eating.
Touche.
I've got to say, when we were surveying the world of fried chicken, our team would go to a city and we'd eat in 5 restaurants a day. I mean, but you're right. We've always viewed ourselves as an experiential restaurant. In a perfect world, there would be no third-party delivery. There would not even be any curbside pickup. And I think that we'll get back to that in terms of, 2021. It's nice to sit down. It's nice to have a craft beer, a craft cocktail, and actually enjoy. When I had young children, I'd get sucked into going to Chuck E. Cheese, and I felt like I lost my soul. And now, we look at young families who come to the Crack Shack, and the kids are happy, but the parents are super happy. So, we have a really broad demographic, and it was really sad to see during the pandemic. I don't even think of it as a pivot. I think of it as it's a new paradigm. So, we have to be more accepting of third-party delivery and curbside in terms of menu engineering, making sure we limit those items that don't travel as well as they should. In terms of, we have large footprint stores. Even before the pandemic, we were thinking of shrinking the box, but keeping the experiential nature. But we started from scratch and re-engineered our menu and made sure we can deliver on all fronts during the pandemic.
Andrew, I want to get your take on this too. Obviously, you have several brands within the portfolio now, and you're watching how all of these brands are adjusting to the pandemic. Now, I have to imagine for you, looking at the Crack Shack and Via 313, these are two brands that probably to you were great opportunities to evolve according to the pandemic. I mean, as Brandon and Zane are talking about, pizza was kind of built for this moment, that it's so off-premises ready. And really, I have to imagine with chicken at Crack Shack too, that this is something that travels very well. Did that factor into, as you guys were looking for acquisitions? What are you weighing in terms of, like, are you looking for brands that can evolve along with this pandemic appropriately?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I like the statement that Mike made. That this is a new paradigm. We always hear of this being the new world, and I don't really like that term, because there's nothing new or normal about this, or the new normal. And for us, we're looking at what human creatures do. We're all social animals. We like to sit face to face. As much as I like doing this Zoom call with all of you guys, I would love to be around a round table in person, eye to eye. And I think that everybody wants that. And I think that when we allocate millions and millions of dollars behind brands right now to grow, what we're thinking of is the paradigm, like Mike said, of, we think that there is going to be third party, that's going to be an increase of digital sales. There's going to be an increase of curbside pickup. Absolutely. But we think that everybody is going way too far with that. In our opinion, we believe that it's going to come back probably stronger than ever before, that people are going to want to go in and break bread with their friends, family, and loved ones. And so for us, we're betting big on Via 313 and on the Crack Shack to go into markets to provide that experiential dining that people are still going to look for. And we think that 2021 is going to be a banner year for these brands. We already know it's going to be, because we have several new locations already pinned down. And so for us, with the existing portfolio of the three brands, R&R BBQ, Molbettas, and Swig, all of them are growing at a speed that they've never grown before. And with Via 313 and Crack Shack, we are betting big on the fact that people are going to come back into the restaurants.
Yeah, that's a good segue into talking about, permanent change, because that's been a subject, obviously, for the last 7-8 months, on top of, I'm sure, all of your minds. It's been on top of my mind a lot. Just talking about, how is this changing the restaurant industry permanently? In the early pandemic, for the first couple of weeks, I think it was like, okay, we're going to get back to normal soon. And then gradually it became obvious that there's going to be a new normal. But I think, Andrew, to your point, maybe it's a sliding scale as to what that new normal looks like. Some people do believe we're going to be in this very virtual concept, digital heavy, off premises, everything kind of world. It sounds like all of you guys are pretty committed to the fact that there will be some sense of normal that does come back. So Brandon and Zane, let's talk about how Via 313 changes permanently. What are some of the things you guys are learning in this season that you can take with you, but what are some ways you also can kind of revert back to what the brand was built upon?
Well, what I would say is to take a half step back here. When Brandon and I had this idea of opening a full service restaurant, it's very mid-century Pizzeria restaurant. I'm saying it's very mid-century in spirit. And I remember we went to the Pizza Expo in 2008 or 2009 in Las Vegas, and we're just talking to people like, we're going to open a full service Detroit style pizzeria, you know, and people were like, nope, nobody's doing full service. It's all fast casual. It's the mod, the blaze, all those things were really starting to gain a lot of traction at that time. And I'm like, no, Brandon and I are like, no, we're going to go a different path. Right. So when you ask, what's changed or what's going to change or what may change coming forward, I think staying the course is the first thing. We believe in the full service experience, the hospitality aspect of what we do, as well as the pizza. I think that there's going to be a greater need coming out of this pandemic where people are all cooped up. There's going to be a greater need than ever for, as Andrew said, people getting together, coming together, breaking bread. As Michael mentioned yesterday when we were chatting, you're right, out of the Spanish flu comes the roaring 20s, right? I think you're going to see a similar thing. I think it's going to be a massive energy rush in the next decade coming out of this. And I think we're well positioned from a full service restaurant perspective to take care of people really, really well, get back to the hospitality, which is really what we're into anyway, is taking care of people. We wouldn't be in this industry if we weren't. And Brandon, I know you've got something to add to that. I'll let you.
Yeah, I mean, as more and more articles come out saying more companies are allowing their employees to work from home, the more the need is going to be out for dinner or just to be taken care of. I mean, everybody's going to be getting stir crazy, working from home and staying at home. And we just hope to be there to provide them an escape for a little bit.
Well, so let's talk about, because for full service, I think I've heard a lot of full service brands talking about like, well, I'm going to look into drive-throughs. I'm going to look into, doing ghost kitchens. And I think full service, because it was forced to pivot so distinctly because of the pandemic, it's brought up a lot of these kind of possible innovations that they never thought about before. Is that tempting for you guys? I mean, are you tempted to look at some of these aspects, the drive-through pickup window, curbside, whatever it might be? I mean, is it tempting to at least, entertain the idea of that?
Not for me.
I mean,
strong man.
Yeah. Andrew might have a different opinion, and I'm sure Michael does as well with chicken. It's just, I can't ever see a pizza going out a drive-through window for Via 313's brand. That might work for, again, some fast casual concepts, but for us, it really is about taking care of people, slowing down, enjoying pizza, and being a part of the community. We always envisioned the Little League baseball team coming down and us supporting them in the off season and them supporting us during the season, and just getting really back to the basics.
Brandon, we're going to fight you over that Little League crowd in that location where we're paired up.
Oh boy.
Sam, we have a restaurant in San Diego, not ours, but in the midst of the pandemic, you talk about what your DNA is, and we'll consider, any tool to enhance curbside pickup. As I'd much prefer curbside pickup to a third-party delivery, which might take 40 minutes. But we had a restaurant here who was a pizza place, and they weren't doing that well during the pandemic, so they started adding items like roast chicken. And I was like thinking, if you can't make a pizza good enough to do business, then adding other items, you're becoming a diner where you can't execute on anything. So, it seems that when I look at the portfolio brands of Savory, none of them have strayed at all from their DNA. And if you have a good concept, you shouldn't have to.
Well, yeah, tell me more about that then, though, Mike, because what are some of the changes that have happened for you guys during the pandemic, even if they're small changes? I mean, because you're right. I mean, I totally agree. You cannot change the core of your concept that drastically, because that's what got your guests there in the first place. And I think we should give guests credit to, sticking around for the thing that they wanted in the first place. But inevitably, I'm sure you've made changes in this pandemic that will stick around. What have those looked like for you in Crack Shack?
Well, I guess first, we've had that, experiential dining premise, because forgetting about quality of ingredients, if you go to the fast food fried chicken places, I don't know anybody who doesn't go there and feel a little bit ashamed. And I don't know anybody who goes on a date or has a gathering of friends at one of those other bone-in fried chicken places. So we start from the premise that ingredients really do matter. And, factory farm chicken is quite frankly, almost enough to make me a vegan. But if we can't have the same experiential, offer that same to our diners, we're lucky. We're in Southern California, so we have a fair amount of outdoor dining, but we have to, through packaging and branding, we have to try to replicate that experience for people at home and make sure they understand. I think, as Zane said, we offer tremendous value. Our prices are obviously high compared to fast food chicken, but the value is incredible, and I think our core customer understands that. So, other than a technology stack, we're never going to have a traditional drive-through because ticket times on fried chicken, but we can certainly use technology to allow a mom or dad with, 2 kids that they've picked up from soccer practice to pull up and use a QR code and take home fried chicken and make that a seamless process for them.
If I can add to this though, Sam, I would just say this. One of the things that we saw while we were doing our due diligence at Savory with both Via and the Crack Shack is that the teams that these gentlemen had put together and assembled around them, they were versatile and they were nimble as to what the opportunities were. And I think that's really the thesis that we have to send out to all of the listeners, is that as long as you are nimble and versatile, but that you stick to the DNA like Mike spoke to, I think that you're going to be okay. I think that people have gone way too far. You say, everybody's going to kind of digital and drive-thrus and pickups. Let's be honest. If every full-service restaurant out there, fast casual and quick serve, rush to drive-thrus, there's not enough drive-thrus on earth to take that many concepts with drive-thrus, right? There's no way. There's not enough real estate. And so supply and demand, those prices are going to go up. And so everyone's going to have to do more in revenue to pay for the more expensive rent. For us, let's just stick true to who you are, but then let's be versatile. So I think that all of us are thinking of, we're going to have a larger percentage towards digital. So how do we attribute our design and our footprint to support that? Of course, we're all thinking of that because we can't say no to digital, but it's not the ideal DNA move for any of these brands in the Savory portfolio right now. We're just going to stick to the DNA that we have, and then maybe have a little bit of a mix. We'll have some more heavy digital, depending on the area that it's in, if it's a more of a metro area. But if it's a suburbia area where experiential is the drive for that concept, we're going to be very heavy on dine-in, very heavy on experiential, and still just own it.
That's a good segue into what I want to talk about next, which is the idea of expansion and what that looks like. Because obviously, expansion means a lot of things now because of just the nature of the restaurant industry. It doesn't necessarily mean expanding, by opening a restaurant. It could mean expanding through ghost kitchens and all that stuff. But, it seems like you guys are all pretty committed to a pretty traditional type of expansion, which is new locations, new markets. Obviously, via 313 Crack Shack, you guys have chosen Savory Fund as a method for expansion. I have to imagine that's, obviously going to be in the cards for you guys. You want to grow. So what does that growth look like? What, both in terms of real estate, both in terms of markets and how big you want to get. What have you got in your sights for how you want to expand the brands? Mike, let's start with you in Crack Shack.
Well, it's funny. The downside to signing the Savory deal is the 400 commercial real estate folks reaching out from New York City, Pennsylvania, everywhere. We are going to, we're not going to, as much, I'm from New York, as much as I'd love to see a Crack Shack in New York, that's kind of off the table. We're going to be west of the Mississippi for now. you could argue there's not a shortage of pizza and chicken places anywhere, but if you have a unique offering, there's always room. And I think, as Andrew's pointed out, and he's got a great real estate team for, understanding the demographics and site selection and construction management. I think there are key markets where there isn't an offering like the Crack Shack. I mean, there are, obviously Chick-fil-A's, there's the hot chicken restaurants, and I agree with Andrew. He's characterized them, it's a menu item. Not everybody wants a hot chicken sandwich. So I think, there isn't a place we can't go. And that's not just, if you think about the better fried chicken category, every culture has their own version of fried chicken, from Peru, Brazil, Japan, Korea. So, chicken is just a globally accepted food. And, we're going to be very careful and have a growth path which enables us to execute, because if you don't execute, growth's beside the point.
And Brandon and Zane, for you guys, when I think of a full service restaurant, I think, you have a pretty typical idea of, a little bit of a bigger box, 4,000, 5,000 square feet. Sometimes, there are significant real estate considerations when it comes to full service typically. But for you guys, what are you used to doing when it comes to real estate? And then as you look at expansion, what do you think is possible?
Typically, we're right now, we've done really well taking over second generation spots here in Austin. The footprint being anywhere from 2,700 to 4,000 square feet. We've felt like 4,000 gets a little almost soulless. No matter how busy it is, you lose that warmth to the restaurant. So it almost feels like the sweet spot would be 3,000 to 3,500, somewhere in there. But kind of the same growth plans, staying west of the Mississippi, being extremely smart, probably starting in a downtown type area and filling in the areas around it, the neighborhoods, and trying to be as much as a neighborhood type vibe restaurant. I feel like we've been involved in the neighborhood for 50 years. I mean, that's the goal.
You said something there that I think is interesting. I want to explore a little bit more, which is the notion of sort of the type of location, as like neighborhood, suburban, urban. That's really been called into question these last several months because, of course, the urban cores, especially typified by like a New York City, just decimated, at least initially, by the pandemic because of the work from home trend that's going on. And so I've had a lot of folks, especially in the fast casual category, talk about, well, we built our growth in urban real estate, and now we're really going to look hard at suburbs. Whether or not that all kind of continues to be the case where, the urban centers struggle, I don't know. It could flood back next year. We just don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty still. But I have to imagine there's still a temptation to sort of rethink the kind of real estate you want as far as, neighborhood and whether that's urban, suburban. Also, there's a lot of talk about, you could just take a parking lot now and make it a valuable piece of real estate because you could run a food truck, or you could do, whatever that might be. If you didn't want a dining room, you could have a little pop-up something or other. So for you guys at Via 313, how's that running through your head? You talk about wanting to be a neighborhood restaurant, but also looking at urban locations. Is there one type of location you really prefer? Is it something that you're going to be flexible? What's going through your mind when you think about those kinds of things?
For us, what we did, our first two locations were trailers that were fairly centrally located in Austin. I mean, you have East Austin, and also over on Rainey Street is essentially where that came to fruition. So those are fairly central in Austin. And I think that in hindsight, it was a stroke of luck. I mean, I'm gonna sit here and take credit that it was genius or anything. I mean, a lot of it's luck. I mean, we were in the right place at the right time. And what it allowed us to do was build our brand, get our food in as many people's mouths as possible, and stay top of people's mind. And it put us in a position to where when we wanted to actually start opening restaurants, and we were in the financial position to do it, we were able to do those surgical strikes in neighborhoods that we were comfortable with and familiar with here in Austin, that we knew had needs and a lot of people to support us. So the next three restaurants that we did after those two trailers were with that in mind. I think that as we enter new markets, as Brandon and Michael mentioned, west of the Mississippi, we're going to be aggressive with Savory's help, but we're also going to be really surgical. And I think we're on alignment on this is that it makes a lot of sense for us for our first location in those new markets, no matter what market it is, to really make it a location that gets us a lot of visibility and announces our arrival to that scene. Then after a period of time, if we open restaurants 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is in those markets, I feel like we can be more surgical with those neighborhood entries at that point. And also to answer your question, Sam, about square footage and footprints and stuff, we've been really flexible up to this point, like as Brandon mentioned, with having second generation spots. We'll probably still, I would imagine moving forward, we're going to keep a really open mind about the type of sites that we're able to come into, whether that's a pad site and building something up from the ground, or it's a second or third generation spot, whatever it is, we're going to still be open-minded about this. What's interesting is we've got an amazing opportunity in front of us because we've bootstrapped this to this point. Brandon and I have in a way where we're just trying to find the right locations. The buildings don't exactly fit what we want perfectly. We've made them work. So this is when we look at the future and growing with Savory, it's going to give us the opportunity with the Savory team to really hone in on what we really want out of an ideal location. So, it's like Brandon said, we've got a location that's over 4,000 square feet. It feels bloated, but it also has a huge kitchen. And maybe we'll look at those type of things in other markets. I think, I said the new paradigm, right, is that there's going to be probably a larger percentage of to-go orders, and that'll allow us to probably reimagine how our kitchens are laid out. Maybe we need an extra oven in the kitchens that are dedicated just to-go, for instance. And a 2,000 or 2,500 square foot restaurant is not going to allow us to have a space in the kitchen that we really need to have that amount of success and to be efficient about it. We don't want long ticket times for to-go, obviously. So, maybe a larger footprint spots. I mean, I know that those are like your Cheesecake Factories and these behemoths that are out there. Maybe some of them start to close, and we look at going into larger square footage places, but have it laid out in a way that works better for our customers. I think that's probably one of the strategies you'll see.
You want to go for that 10,000 square foot Cheesecake Factory, second generation?
Maybe we should.
There's a lot of soup plantation sites for sale.
Yeah.
You could get a department store if you really wanted to. You could put about 8 or 9 restaurants in there. Mike, I want to give you the chance to answer this question too. I mean, obviously San Diego, Orange County is quite a bit different than Denver, Salt Lake City. Obviously there's some similarities, but when you think about the type of market that's perfect for Crack Shack and the type of neighborhood, what are you thinking?
When we started the discussion about urban versus suburban, I think, whether it's Austin or San Diego, it's very different than if you're talking about, downtown San Francisco or New York City. By urban, whether people are working from home in Little Italy, the part of San Diego we're located in, or, downtown, which is a mile away, there's a high density of population, and people aren't living in 5,000 square foot houses with huge kitchens. And through the pandemic, I think as Zane and Brandon pointed out, you're working from home, you got to get out of the house. So bringing back food to your apartment is not always ideal. What's an ideal location for us? I mean, an ideal location is in an area where I think people are not house poor. Sometimes the suburbs, by the time you pick up your kids from school or sports and get home, you're going to go out on a Thursday or Friday. You're not going out on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I think we have to be careful to find locations where people are dining out every day of the week. From a box standpoint, we were blessed and cursed by our first couple locations. we were thinking that our first location, we put in a bocce court, not because we thought that was a great idea and people would play bocce. It was because we would be so embarrassed if we had this huge outdoor space for people to eat at and there was no energy. A lot of things come by accident, but I think challenge for the Crack Shack is our kitchen demand is pretty significant. We have a lot of square footage to do a by scratch menu in our world. So our chicken, we get our chicken by 24, 48 hours after processing. It's not, sitting on supermarket shelves for 2 weeks or on the back of a delivery truck. It's really fresh, and our kitchen demand is it's kind of complex for us to find second gen space sometimes.
Andrew, I want to give you a chance to jump in too, mostly because for Savory, you guys, primarily the brands in your portfolio now before Crack Shack and Via 313 are Utah-based. And so I'm wondering what kind of learnings you've gotten from that, what kind of learnings you feel you can take from Crack Shack and Via 313, learning from Southern California, learning from Austin, and how do you view this sort of across your concepts and how you can kind of, take a more holistic approach to expansion and real estate with your whole portfolio?
Yeah, it's kind of an answer that I give with two prongs. First and foremost, I've owned and operated 175 restaurants across America. So I've been in 12 different geographies throughout the Midwest, through of course, the Rocky Mountains, and then, of course, Southeast. And you learn a lot that different climates throw you different blessings and curses at the same time. There's obviously the place that everybody wants to be, and that's Southern California. And it's because you have year-round weather. I think Austin too, we're going to have mostly year-round weather. Although I don't know if I want to sit outside on a patio when it's 100 degrees and 98% humidity eating a pizza, but it is a little bit different than Utah and Colorado, where we've been, where you of course have the winter months. We've learned that we want to actually have a portfolio of restaurants that are in a lot of different geographies for that reason. If we go down memory lane for my other answer to the question, in 2007, I bought a piece of land, headed to my office. I was actually in the tech industry for about 11 years. And I saw this amazing piece of land go up as I was driving there. And I called them and I said, I want to take the piece of land. I'd love to buy it. And they said, okay, what are you going to put on there? I'm like, I have no idea. I just want a piece of land. Give me 1 acre. So I bought a 1 acre parcel for a little over $1 million. It was raw land, paper lot, in front of a new grocery anchored center. Within a year, I was still the CEO of my tech company, and my wife and I opened our first restaurant. It was called Anita's Bakery and Cafe. And the crash happened in 2008. Literally 2 months after we had built it, the crash happened. And that piece of land that I bought was now probably overinflated by $300,000 to $400,000 in value. And from the period of 2009 to 2012, where I was buying land and building and constructing additional restaurants, the market was probably the best opportunity for growth. Now we fast forward here into the pandemic of 2020. It's a very different climate than back in 2008. Back then, there was a financial crisis. People were literally trying to get rid of any and all assets to hoard cash as much as they could. Banks had of course, failed. This is very different. And I think that even though it's different, there's a lot of opportunity, but it's different opportunity. And I'll tell you how. Back in 2009 to 2012, there were still the 5,000 and 6,000 square foot box users that were taking land left and right. And the national guys were taking advantage of all of the opportunity to lower costs. This is different now that the bigger chains, the bigger boxes are actually the ones that are under more pressure than even the smaller guys, right? And so from an opportunity standpoint for all brands in the portfolio, but primarily for Via 313 and Crack Shack, we have this unbelievable opportunity to go in and take still 3,000 to 4,000 square feet in some of these 5,000, 6,000, and 7,000 square foot boxes, because there's no users for those anymore, Sam. I think we know everybody's shrinking down. And so you say, has the strategy changed? Yes, we're going to shrink it up a bit, but we're actually users that can take that space, when right now there's not a lot of users wanting to take that space. So we're going to be very versatile. And I think that for everybody listening to your podcast too, Sam, I think it's important for them to understand you have to have a brand that's versatile. And when I say versatile, we're not building a brand with a square foot size and a makeup. we're building a brand that goes into whatever style or size restaurant we can find that's going to be the best location for us. And for that reason, we just have to be very versatile as brands to go into those.
Clearly, there's going to be a lot of opportunity out of this. You guys have all kind of mentioned this notion of second generation spaces, and sadly, there's going to be a whole lot of second generation spaces available in third and fourth. Clearly, there is sort of a silver lining to all of this very difficult season, which is that there will be spaces available. There will be real estate. There will be labor available. There will be human capital. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there for restaurants that can get through this season. What does that opportunity look like for your brands? Brandon and Zane, via 313, what do you guys think that opportunity looks like, particularly as we, get out of 2020, get into 2021? What are you guys looking at?
I was saying yesterday, we made the announcement to our team about 2 weeks ago, and we're already seeing just a shift in culture within our own company with all the growth potential that has kind of been laid out in front of them. Employees that are normally pretty quiet and just show up and do their job are speaking up and want to be managers. Managers are wanting to be district managers. There's just a renewed energy within our restaurants that we're already starting to see with the announcement of the partnership. And I expect that to kind of just grow within our own city. People are looking for good news, and they want to be a part of good news. And we got a really special thing going here with the amount of opportunity that's going to be available for 2021 and moving forward. So just trying to keep stoking the fire on that.
Mike, how about for you in Crack Shack? What do you see as being that sort of chief opportunity looking into next year?
I mean, Brandon, hit the nail on the head. He's in Austin, though, and we're in California. And if, Gavin Newsom is listening, you can't imagine how many of our managers in California are thinking, wow, I can grow with the Crack Shack brand in perhaps Utah or perhaps Texas or perhaps Colorado and, have a lower cost of living and better quality of life. But wherever, we jointly with the Savory team decide to head, it is sad, as you point out, that there will be casualties of COVID. I think it's truly sad in the bigger cities that some of the fast food places are doing very well, and even the excellent neighborhood full service restaurants are challenged. It's incredibly sad. We went through some tumultuous times. When you have talented people, you want to provide opportunity for growth. And I think at this point, we're really blessed to have partnered with Savory. And I think the opportunity, people will rise to the occasion, and we will be successful wherever we go.
I got good news for you, Mike. State governors are chief among my audience, so perhaps Gavin Newsom is listening. Okay, as we're bringing it on home now, let's talk about what you guys would advise other restaurant operators. Learning everything you have learned in these last 7-8 months, and you guys are longtime restaurant operators, what you've known from before the pandemic too. What's your advice to other restaurant operators? And you can talk too about, the acquisition and seeking out that acquisition and partner too. What do you guys think restaurant operators should be doing right now as they set themselves up for success in the future? Mike, we'll go back to you.
Sure. I think the self-assessment is pretty important. In almost anything you do, you have to look at where you have core capabilities, what your strengths are as individuals, what your strengths are as a team, and what perhaps you either are not good at or perhaps what you don't like doing. And so I think you have to be honest with yourself. I think you have to stay true to the DNA, which we discussed earlier. I think if you have a differentiated, unique experience to offer the dining public, it's a matter of execution. And execution, unfortunately, in our business is every day. You know that some segment of the thousands of people you serve will have a non-ideal experience. And if you don't understand it, obviously you have Yelp to put it in your face. No matter what you're doing, if you're not paying attention to customer experience, you're already behind the eight ball. So I think combining that DNA with a focus on execution and finding, if you don't have a capability, finding a partner that does, I think that's the recipe for growth.
Brandon and Zane, how about you guys?
Oh man, Mike, you killed it right there, because that's a lot of what I would have said. I'll just double down on what he just said to the audience out there. Brandon and I get asked often, whether we're doing podcasts or interviews, just people ask like, hey, what do you think is the number one reason for your success? Now, obviously there's multitude of things, right? But the thing that comes to the top of my mind the most is having the honesty with yourself to admit, like, I'm not good at everything. I'm good at this and this. You're good at a few things and you need a lot of help with these other things. If you can stay humble, always stay humble enough and stay hungry enough to want to learn, I think that you make yourself, in many cases, an unstoppable force. Brandon and I have constantly self-evaluated about what we want to do, what we think we're good at, what we're not good at, and we've tried to hire those weaknesses as much as possible. I think for us right now with Savory, it's another example of that. I mean, Brandon and I are not experts at scaling. We're not experts in real estate. We know the Austin market, sure, and we've done well here, but we don't know the markets outside of Austin. So I think that first and foremost, it's always, what could benefit people, being honest with themselves. That's the first thing. And also, again, what Mike mentioned too, is I think we all can get into trouble when we start to change the fundamental DNA of who we are and what we are as businesses. We can't lose sight of why we got into this line of work. We have to stay the course as much as possible. So anyway, I just repeated literally everything Mike said, but yeah, that I feel the same way, honestly.
Brandon, anything you would want to add?
Man, they're not leaving me much meat on the bone here. There's, it's just a matter of what you want. We've worked for some people in the past where they wanted to work 40 years in the pizza place and have one restaurant, and it sure beats working for someone else at the end of the day. So I get it. For us, we never wanted to be in the restaurant all day working, grinding. We wanted it to be bigger than us. We wanted to share Detroit style pizza with everyone. We wanted to be a part of the movement. We wanted Detroit style to be mentioned with Chicago and New York. And I think we're right there. And with Savory's help, I feel like we can get the word out there to everyone.
Andrew, I'll give you the final word. What do you think these two brands represent that other restaurant operators across America should learn from?
A positive outlook. One of the things that I realized when we actually had met with Brandon and Zane is they were super positive about their brand and what they had created. And the same with Mike, just the confidence and the positivity behind what they had created. I think that my advice to anybody, and we've talked obviously to a lot of restaurateurs out there in different groups that would love to do a transaction. And for the record, I would like to help everybody. It's probably in my DNA to just want to help everyone. And that's one of the reasons why we've done Restaurantology, especially with you, Sam. We feel like you're the best out there as far as delivering the best content and having a positive outlook, is we just want to help. We think that there's enough to go around for everyone to succeed, truly. But we just don't have the ability to help everybody like we're going to help the portfolio companies that we have. One thing I would say though is make sure that you nail the landing within your business before you grow. One of the commonalities that we've heard over the last 9-10 months pre-pandemic and even during the pandemic, as we've been looking for new brands to add, is that everybody's saying, I can't wait to go grow, and I'm just going to go crush it, and 2021 is going to be amazing for me, and I'm just going to go get a bunch of sites, and I'm going to grow through the problems. And I think that that's a very dangerous business plan to have. When I've looked at a lot of financials and I've looked at them and I thought, boy, if you grew, you'd really hurt yourself. But if you paused and really focused on your business and did some of the things that my partners here have talked about, be true to your DNA and really think through how to be versatile with your brand, you're probably going to be a really good brand out of this pandemic. But don't go grow your way out of problems. Growing your way out of problems never works. It just augments the problems. And I would say, too, make sure that you shore up your balance sheet. If you augment the brand that you have now, make sure you have enough capital on the balance sheet to make sure that you can weather a storm. And then lastly, I would just say, because when you're sitting with someone that's got tears in their eyes saying, please help me, good grief, I would love to help that person. And I always try to find a way I can help them the best I can. But I always say the same thing, and that is, hard times do not last. I've gone through 3 different huge cycles as a business entrepreneur, as an operator. And, when you go through those big fluctuations, you think that the darkness is always going to be around you, but light does come back. And we're not going to be in this dark hole that I think a lot of people feel forever. Hard times don't last. They are going to pass us. And this one too shall pass.
That's good stuff. Well, hey, gentlemen, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. Certainly congratulations to you guys on these acquisitions. That's big news and very exciting. So thank you for your time. Well, there you have it. That's my conversation with Michael Rosen, the founder of The Crack Shack, Brandon and Zane Hunt, the founders of Via 313 Pizzeria, and Andrew Smith, the managing director of Savory Fund. Stay tuned tomorrow for episode 4 of the Restaurantology series. We will be talking once again to Shauna Smith, the president of Savory Management, and she will be joined by Savory Management Vice President Alonzo Castaneda. They will be talking about the trends that they're seeing in the industry today, how the industry is changing because of the pandemic, what the opportunities are that they see for the restaurant industry moving forward. But especially they'll be talking a little bit more about getting inside the mind of an investor, what they're looking for in a solid investment in the restaurant industry as they're looking around for emerging concepts to invest in, and what restaurant brands should be doing to prepare for that investment. Again, you can get these episodes all on the Fast Forward podcast feed, wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can go to savoryfund.com/restaurantology for the entire archive and stream it there, stream the videos of these panel conversations. We'll talk to you then.